Hello, church family. I just wanted to say it was a real blessing seeing so many of you last Sunday night for our song and fellowship time at the church parking lot. I'm thankful we had the opportunity, even though it was kind of hard to hear each other singing in the wind. It was still such an encouragement to see your faces and speak with many of you. Well, I'm thankful for the technology we have to use to stay connected in other ways. I'm honestly not super excited always about making these videos. I would much rather speak to you all in person and have your immediate feedback, and it's probably a pride thing because I'm really kind of too self-conscious about these videos. There's amazing variety of giftedness that we have as a church body and really even as a pastoral staff, whether outlined conversationally, extemporaneously, or in a manuscript. I know our different personalities and presentation styles work differently here than other usual formats that we're used to, but I think each of us appreciates most the dynamic of the in-person experience. In the interest of full disclosure, I have found it best for me to manuscript my thoughts, and if you don't know already, I kind of do these in a bit of an anchorman style with a makeshift teleprompter that I'm using. I hope it's not too distracting for you. My wife finds it maybe a little more distracting than most. But anyway, speaking of anchormen, I'm kind of a news junkie. For the most part, I enjoy keeping up with current events and breaking news. I like being aware of what is happening in the world, our country, and our state, and then taking time to think it through as I look for trends and even speculate as to what it means now and what it means in the future. Lately, though, I found myself needing to back away from a lot of what is being said and even reported on. Whether it's an online news feed or radio or television, so often I detect a biased assumption coming through in a report or even a double standard in a story that can really infuriate me. At times, it makes me want to spew my opinion on others, either in a conversation or on a Facebook and Twitter post. I've often had to stop myself as I try to heed the warning of Proverbs 18 that says, "If one gives an answer before he hears it, it is folly and shame." I think one of the dangers of living in a short attention span, soundbite, and quick read headline culture is that we're often tempted to make snap judgments before hearing the whole story. I'm reminded of something else one of the writers of Proverbs says later in chapter 18. In verse 17, he says, "The one who states his case first seems right, until the other comes and examines him." You see, so often my frustration is due to just the overwhelming amount of what's called expert information that is out there and such a limited amount of time to really sort through it all. I believe if I'm not careful, I can become foolish in my thinking and speaking, and I must be careful to guard myself. Now, my other temptation may be just to bury my head in the sand or hide myself until it all just goes away. And that certainly isn't the way to handle it either, is it? I believe we are called upon to live in careful moderation when it comes to these things. In this world full of expert opinions, we must be willing to wait patiently before coming to conclusions. Because of the rapid nature of our media and how quickly breaking news happens, it can be really tempting for us to want to be the first to respond. Some might even think that the quicker I respond to something, the more it will seem that I care. Well, there may be a degree of truth to that. We need to couple that with the warnings given at the end of Proverbs 17 and the beginning of Proverbs 18. This group of 7 verses really speaks to much of what is going on in our country and even within our media. Whether trying to think and speak rightly about the loss of finances and the free access that we have due to COVID-19, the unthinkable killings of those who racially profile and take the law into their own hands, or maybe even what appears to be a blatant double standard in high-profile sexual assault allegations. Listen to these words starting in Proverbs 17:27 down through chapter 18, verse 5. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. When wickedness comes, contempt comes also, and with dishonor comes disgrace. The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The fountain of wisdom is a bubbling brook. It is not good to be partial to the wicked, or to deprive the righteous of justice. There are a number of helpful thoughts here for us. First, I'm reminded not to be a person who reacts too quickly to things I see and hear, but instead to seek a complete understanding of an issue. Sometimes it is best really just to keep my mouth shut to avoid saying something foolish. The second thing I notice is something we might actually find challenging to do right now, and that is the reminder not to isolate ourselves. Now, I don't think the writer here is speaking of just not being by ourselves physically. The idea here is the danger of cutting ourselves off from thoughtful counselors and the variety of godly opinions that can help us think through the events of our day and even the choices and decisions we make. The third truth that I want us to think about is the one of how what we say reveals a lot about us. He refers to our words as deep waters. What we say reveals what is going on in our hearts, often without us really thinking about it. This should remind us to be perceptive when listening to others, but also to be attending to our own hearts, because our words are a revealer of what is there. The writer says that when it is wise and good that is coming out of our mouths, it is like a clean, refreshing water. The last thought we see here is really a pretty grave one. Twice in this passage, the writer mentions wickedness or the wicked. I know we would agree that there is just an abundance of really overt and unabashed wickedness around us, from the highest to the lowest parts of our society. And it is contemptible and disgraceful, and as believers, it angers us, and rightly so. What we must be careful to do is to see all sinfulness or wickedness for what it is, and not somehow gloss over it, as verse 5 says, being partial towards some kinds of wickedness and not others. As believers, we should desire justice and for things to be made right. But when we fail to call out wickedness for what it is, we are not being just or seeking justice. Now, we certainly know in this fallen world, justice has its limitations. We can't judge every matter simply by what we see and hear, especially if there are those who have no voice. I'm thankful and longing for the day when Christ comes to bring perfect justice and judgment. Listen to the words of Isaiah 11, verses 1 through 5. We often hear these words around Christmas time, but I think they're appropriate for us anytime we're thinking about Christ as his return and the promises that we enjoy because of it. Verse 1 of Isaiah chapter 11, "There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. Those are some wonderful promises regarding who Christ is and what we have to look forward to when he returns. So, whether we are seeing the latest freedom or liberty limited by the coronavirus, whether we're seeing a cowardly and disgraceful killing that has occurred on our streets, or a completely blatant double standard by those with a political agenda, let's be reminded to be calm in our response, even as we groan and long for the complete revelation of the righteousness of Jesus Christ when he returns. I hope you have a wonderful day. Look forward to seeing you, or at least communicating with you on Sunday morning for our morning worship service. Have a wonderful weekend.